Alright, so again, what I'd like you to do is start up Android Studio, start a new Android Studio project where you normally start a new Android Studio project. Make sure you are including Kotlin support. Alright, I'm just going to call it Resume. That's the easiest name because that's what we're going to do. Alright, it won't be a full-fledged resume, but you'll understand hopefully as we go through it. Alright, so again, hopefully all that makes sense. Resume, your domain, the location, and make sure you've included Kotlin support. Questions? All right. Next, we'll just use the API 14, which is the default, should be fine. Next, we're going to have an empty activity to begin with, so just make sure it is empty activity. And today will be the first time, and maybe you've done this already, maybe you have not, but we're going to create some intents, and when we do, we're going to have more than one page on this app. All right, but for now, our main page, we're just going to call main activity. Okay? So, again, we've taken all the defaults. We're going to click Finish and let it build and do its thing. No, just we'll rename the other one that we're going to create in just a bit. But main, then you'll know always where the main, where it starts, etc. So that should be fine. All right. Once this comes up, and we're over here, all right. First thing that we're going to do, so I'm in the activity_main.xml file. I'm just going to make this real simple, and that is I'm going to highlight where it says Android.support.constraint layout, all that, and I'm just going to type in there linear layout. All right, and that changed everything for us. That should be fine the way it is. All right, questions on that? All right, so I'm going to jump back into design mode here. Notice how that pushed our hello world thing up to the top. We're going to take that, we're going to leave that hello world. If you've already removed it, that's fine. Just add a new text view, that's fine. But we're going to give that an ID here of, we're going to call it text view title. Oops. Just text view title, that should be fine. All right. Now, once we've got that, it says hello world. It's kind of hard to see right now. We're going to take the width, and we're going to set the width to match parent so that it stretches all the way. We've done this kind of thing before, so it shouldn't be any big surprise to you. All right. We're going to change the, I want you to change the text from hello world to your name. You can put it all in caps. What's that? Yeah, you're right. I guess I didn't even think about that. You're right. As just mentioned here by Mr. Williams, we really should put it in there as a string. So let's open up our strings.xml file. Thank you for that suggestion. That is really that'll be the title. It's just going to be our name. So I'm just going to call it title. And again, all kidding aside, none of you have my name, so don't put that in there, okay? All right. All right. If you haven't figured this out already, we're going to get this to a certain point today, and then you're going to take it further for your next assignment. All right, which won't be due until we get back from the break, so you don't have to worry about it. You'll have time to work on it. But the point is, with what we do right now, if you decide later that you want to change it around, change the color, change the this, change the that, then do it. All right, we've talked about colors before, so I'm not hot on doing a lot of stuff with colors right now. Okay, but where we have the text, it is kind of hard to see, so I am going to go down to where we have text, and I'm going to change the alignment so that it's centered, and I'm going to change the size so that it's 30 SP, and the style just to make it bold. All right. So far we used the existing text view. We changed the name of the existing text view. All right, we changed it to text view title. All right. We went in and used the strings.xml file for that, and then we changed a couple of attributes. All right. Now, one thing I forgot to do, that's on me, but we'll do it right now, is if you would please just click on the linear layout itself. Just single click on the linear layout itself. All right. See right now where it says linear layout horizontal? All right. Well, that's the orientation. So we're going to go down to the orientation. We're going to change it from horizontal to vertical. All right. So click on linear layout, and then in your attributes or properties window, go to orientation, and right now it's set to the default, which is horizontal. We are going to change it to from horizontal to vertical. Questions on anything so far? Some books will actually recommend to you that you even name your layouts. You know, we could have called this a linear layout main. You know, the next one that we're going to do, which is going to be our work experience, we could call that linear layout work experience. It gets to a point where, you know, I literally have talked to people in the past. I had a student at Blackhawk, I remember, that I talked to once, and he said, you know, I understand you wanting us to name this stuff, and I really don't have a problem with anything, but he said, sometimes I think you go a little nuts, because it's like if you've got a label that is going to have static text and it's never going to change, why do you really have to name it? And that's actually a pretty good point. All right. So, all right, after this, the next thing we're going to do is over here, if you look on the screen here, okay, what we want to do is over here on our palette that's over here, I'm going to go to images. I'm going to find an image view, and I'm going to drag that right down below my text view that I just put in. And it's going to come up and look like this. All right. For now, and we'll change this. We'll just use the colors. So find a color you like. It doesn't really matter what it is. All right. I'll click on color here. Find something you like, probably lighter. The lighter the better. And click OK. Now, you're not going to see it right now, and don't worry about that. We're going to fix that in just a minute. All right. So for right now, don't worry about it. What's that? I can't hear you. All right. So with that image view, it's going to be a picture of you. You don't have one? Get one. Take one. I took one. I literally just turned this around an hour ago and took one of me. All right. And you don't have, you'll have to do it for when you turn it in. Okay. And again, this may be something that you decide that you want to go and put out into your portfolio. I don't know. All right. But for what we're going to do now is with that image view, because right now I think you'd all agree that we can't really see it. All right. So I'm going to go over here where we've got the layout width. And you know what? I'll leave it at match parent. That's okay. But I'm going to go to layout height, and I'm going to remove what's there. And I'm going to type in the number 200 and just hit enter. And that should do that. Now, if you didn't change your color, it may not show. All right. Eventually, we're going to replace that with your picture. All right. Make sure that up here, make sure it says 200 dp. You might have to even, I had to redo mine twice and hit enter, and then it should. Well, then with that wrap content, make sure that all of that is highlighted and delete it, and then try to put it in. Okay, well, we'll look at it. I don't know what, I have no idea what it would be. All right. Underneath this, right here, underneath this, I'd like you to put in, you know, you can go back to widgets, you can go back to all, it doesn't matter, but I'd like you to put in 3 buttons right underneath that. So underneath, so button, button, button. All right. Doesn't look like much right now, and I'm not even going to lie to you. I mean, I wouldn't call this the most beautiful interface I've ever seen, but ideally at least, when we get done, it'll be functional. All right? And I think you all get this in that what we want to have happen eventually, what we want to have happen is this: when we click this button, we're going to go to a different page. And that page will have our work history stuff. When we click this button right here, that's going to literally bring up a phone, all right, in the emulator, all right. And when we click here, it's going to set it up to do some emailing for us. All right, so what do we have here? Well, if we go in and we look at our component tree right here, we haven't changed a lot of names. We changed the title, all right. The image view, there's only going to be one. We really could just leave it call it image view, but I'm going to call mine image view me because that's going to be a picture of me. All right. If you decide, no, I'll just leave it as image view, that's fine. Really doesn't matter. But we are going to name each one of these buttons. So the first button that's right here, we're going to change this one to button, we'll call it work experience. I don't like work history. I think work experience sounds better. So button, all lowercase, work with a capital W, experience with a capital E. All right? Now, you may or may not know this, but again, if you'd please look at the screen, you can come right here. You know, we can change that. We don't want it to say button. Okay? But if you didn't know this, you can also just double click on the button, and that always opens it up too. So you can, once you've double clicked on it, you're able to change it too. All right? So I can double click on it if I want to, so I can do it either way. All right? So I'm going to put in here work experience. All right. Then I'm going to go to the next button, and I'm going to change this one, the name of this, to button call. And I want the actual text in there to be call. You know, you might want to put, even though it looks a little weird, you might want to put in there call. Well, I don't know what that just did. You don't want that. What is it doing? Oh, okay, it's telling me, you know, again, going back to what Brady said, we probably shouldn't do it that way. Let's go back to our work experience. Let's remove that. And let's go into strings.xml and set up all of our button text. So, so all that makes sense if you take a look at it up on the screen here? All right. So now I can go back in, back into here, go here, and for the text, go over here, and first one was what? Was work experience. The second one will be call me, and the last one will be email me. All right. No. We're actually going to go in and take a look at something in the buttons in just a minute. All right. I want to make sure everybody's caught up. And it looks like with my last button here on mine, maybe you did, I didn't change the name. So it's still called button 3, which is a dumb name. So I'm going to change that one to button email. All right. Any questions so far? All right. Now, if you look on the screen, what I want to do, and please don't do this, but I just watch if you would. I want to put some space in between these three buttons. Now I could click on this button, do it, click on the next button, do it, click on the next button, do it, or I can just go and highlight all three buttons. I find it's easier to click over in the component tree to highlight multiple things. Sometimes if you try to click on these, sometimes one or two just don't get highlighted for whatever reason. All right. So with that up there, I want to click this View All Attributes because I want to go down here, and I got to remember what it was called. I want to change the layout margin horizontal and the layout margin vertical. All right. So first I'm going to change the vertical, and I'm going to type in 10 there. Now that should be pretty obvious what just happened. All right. And then I'm going to go up above it, and for the horizontal, I'm going to type in 20, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, you see how I've shrunk it down a little bit? Now there's other ways that you could do this as well. All right, and some people might look at what I'm doing right now and say, I don't like the way that looks. That's not professional. That's not this. It's fine for what it is. Okay. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to go to the image view because now it kind of looks too chunky. So I'm going to go to the image view, and I'm also going to change for that one the layout margin, just the horizontal one, and I'm going to make that 20 as well. All right. Now we can run it. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to look all that great or anything like that. But you know what? It's a start. All right. One of the things that I'm going to tell you before you do your next assignment, or when you do your next assignment, you could change any of this. All right. So let's say that Amin thinks that his picture should go on top and his name go underneath it. That's fine. All right. I don't really care. I want you to take some creative prose, so to speak, and do this the way that you want to do it. All right. That's kind of what I'm looking for you to do. All right, so right now, like I said, it's not too bad. I think it's time to go in and do a file, save all. And one thing I found, because I've done this project a couple times, that the next thing we want to do is we want to add a new activity. All right, but before we do that, make sure you do a save all and let's build it. All right, in other words, let's go run the app, which will do a build. All right. Now you can see this is the way that it'll look when it's all done. That's the picture I took before. This should change to this hopefully in a couple seconds. But just so you see it, what we eventually want to have happen is this. We click work experience. We're going to go to a new page. I just threw a bunch of garbage up there. Right? It doesn't mean anything. Call, it's going to do that. All right. And when we have to back up. And email, you got to actually set it up. All right. But we're going to be doing all that stuff, at least ideally, all right, by the time we're finished today. Now, when mine does this and it refuses to basically show what I've just done, then I've got to go back and again do a save, do a save all as soon as it lets me. All right. So I've got to go back in and do a save all, and then I've got to rebuild my APK. Not sure why. Sometimes it works just fine, and there are absolutely no problems. Sometimes I have this problem. All right, just like I said, for whatever reason, doesn't appear to work right. So I'm going to do a file, save all, build, clean, do this twice. And I watched this video by this guy, and he suggests always doing it twice. Even sometimes when I build the APK, sometimes it fails. I don't know why. All right, right there, it said it was generated successfully, and I'm going to try to run it. Now, I'm not going to, because I've already created these and I forgot to put it on there, this may be the kind of app that you decide, you know what, I only want this app to be, I only want this one to be a portrait, all right? But you should start, you know, I would have at least one app that you're going to put on into your portfolio that should run both in portrait mode and in landscape mode, all right? Just to show people that you know the difference between the two, that you can do those. Yes?
I know, but moving my title,
I do. I'd have to. I don't know. It probably has something. You may have to go in and add some, go into the image view and add some top padding top or something like that. I don't know. And it still is giving me my new one. It's not giving me the old one. I don't know why. Or I should say it's giving me the old one, not the new one. So the next thing we want to do is we want to add a new activity. Now, when we add this new activity, the idea is, if you look on the screen, when we click this button right here, what we will want to have happen is we will want it to open up a new screen. That new screen will be entitled Work Experience. And you'll have a bunch of stuff in there where you'll put your work experience. We're just going to put garbage in there for right now. All right? And that's fine. You're going to change it as part of your assignment. Not going to be hard to change. All right? But again, my hope is that you will do this, take it seriously, and I mean, don't put garbage in there. All right? Literally make it look like the work experience part that you have on your resume. All right? So I want to go and I want to, like I said, I want to set that up. So what we have to do here is we have to come in and we have to set up a new activity. Right now we've got the main activity, and that's it. So if you would, take your mouse, and in the folder above where it says main activity, don't double click, but just single click right there so that is highlighted. All right? And then right mouse click on it, choose new, go down to activity, and choose empty activity. So if I did that too fast, look at the screen. It's right there. Which folder? The folder right above, the one that the main activity is contained in. Because that's your folder with your activities.
Activity main.xml?
No. The main activity, your .java, your .kt file. It should be right underneath Java. So again, right mouse click on that folder, choose new, go all the way down to activity, and choose empty activity. Questions on that? All right. Once you do, it should look familiar to you. Now, to get back to Brady's point from earlier, no, we don't want to call this main 2. All right, main is fine because that's our main one. This is going to be work experience, so I'm going to call it work experience activity with a big W and a big E. I probably have already told you about this, but I'm going to say it again anyway. Years ago, I applied for a different teaching position, all right? And when I did, at the time, the thing that they gave us for the application, you had to fill it out by hand, all right? So I did. And instead of putting down $30,000 like I made at a previous position, I put $300,000. It was my own fault. It was stupid. Every single person who interviewed me noticed that and brought it up. Okay? So why am I telling you that? Well, if you put walk experience in here instead of work, and somebody ever goes to the point where if they can look at your code, that's how they might remember you. All right? So part of your grade, what I've started to do is usually 10 points on an assignment, and it says it on this one too. It says, make sure that this is a professional looking app. All previous coding standards, naming conventions, etc. are followed. And I'm not saying that the conventions I give you are the best in the world, but they're not bad. I wouldn't see where they would be unacceptable to someone else. All right. So I've got work experience. Notice too, if I take this and stretch it up, see this? I'm just making it taller than it was. Notice now, source language. See that? You want it to be Kotlin. It is possible for you to have Kotlin files and Java files in the same app. It is also possible for you to take a Java file, click a couple buttons, and turn it into a Kotlin file. All right? We're not going to talk about that stuff right now. But we want work experience activity. The layout name will then be activity work experience, which is fine. If you don't know, launcher activity typically means, is that how you want to use that to start the program? No, we're not going to use that to launch anything. All right? Backwards compatibility, you should always leave that. The package name should be the same as the one you had previously. And again, the source language should be Kotlin. And if you click finish, okay? Now, good, bad, or indifferent, we're not going to do a lot. We're not going to, believe it or not, we're not even going to add any code to this file. We could, you might, but for what we're doing today, we won't add any code to this file. All right? But what I do want you to do is, now what you should notice is, and I like to just put my things together like this, so I've got my activity main, and there's my other one. What we do want to do is we want to go over to our XML file. All right? And I will tell you, because I tried this twice this morning, okay, just so you're aware of this. Remember I told you before you should save the project and run it, or at least do a build? When I tried it this morning and I tried adding a new activity before I did a build, it gave me an error. And it told me the project hadn't been built yet. As soon as I went back and built it, it was fine. Now you can say, well, I didn't build it, mine worked. Okay. But I'm just telling you things that can conceivably happen. All right? We're going to do a couple things in here. First of all, we're going to go into text mode, and again, we're going to change this constraint layout and make it another linear layout. All right, so that's the first thing. And you'll notice that unlike our main, which at least had a text view in it, this has nothing in it. We are going to put two things in it in just a minute. All right? We're going to get to that in just a second. All right, but make sure that you have it set up as linear. All right, so to answer the question that was just asked, I'm going to go back into design mode, and yeah, we are going to set the orientation on this one also. We're going to set it to vertical. Okay. Next, we're only going to put two things in here. This will not be hard at all. Shouldn't say that we're going to actually put three things in, but for now we're going to put in two things. First is we're just going to grab a text view. If you don't know, if you click all, it's right underneath where the separator bar is. So we're going to grab a text view and we're going to drag one right there. Okay? This is going to look very similar to what we just did. What do I mean? Well, this is going to be the title of this page. So I'm going to call this text view title. All right. I'm going to set the width. It's already set to match parent, I guess, and that's cool. That's what I want. All right. I should be able to use the same strings file. I think we're going to find out, because I didn't put anything in strings because I never even thought about that. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to have a string. I'm going to name it W. Oh, we already have a WE. We have a work experience already. So I don't need to do that. Forget that. Remember, we already did this. It can be the name of our button and it can be the name of a title. Doesn't hurt. All right. So let me jump back into this. All right, and I'm going to change that. I don't want the text in there to be text view. All right, I'm going to come in here and I want the text to be work experience. All right, and of course it didn't take. There it is. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing I did before. In other words, I'm going to go down to text, the same kind of thing we did before. I'm going to set the alignment to center. I'm going to set the size to 30, SP, and I'm going to set the style to bold. All right. Other than that, I mean, it looks, right now, it looks just like the other title, except instead of my name, it has work experience. Okay? All right. Then right under what we currently have in here, we're going to grab another text view and just drag it. And I think you know this, but just in case you don't, okay? I can take this text view, if you look on the screen, I can drag it here, and that's totally fine. I can also just take it and drag it down here if I want to. You can do either one. There are people that I've watched do this who are very comfortable working in the component tree to do everything. Ethan mentioned earlier how, at least if I'm kind of paraphrasing what you said, that he felt a lot of comfort just going into the XML file and setting up stuff. Well, you can do this any way you want. The bottom line is, do you get to the right point when you're all done? All right. So if we look here, this says text view on it right now. This is going to be our actual work experience. So why don't we just call it what it is? So we'll call this text view work experience. And again, as always, if you don't like my names, then you come up with your own. But later, when we start to add code, I'm going to assume you're using the names I used. All right? Yes?
For text view title, is it okay if we have repeat names for different activities? So like we already have a text view title in the other activity?
Yes. Yeah, because it's on two different activities. Yeah, that's totally fine. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and notice that right now my width says match parent. And I don't know if it'll take it for height. I don't want it to screw it up, but yeah. We're going to set the height and the width so they're both match parent, because this is going to be our whole work history in here. All right? So if I did that too fast, all I did was with this thing that we just added here, I made sure that layout width and layout height were both set to match parent. I don't need any text in there whatsoever, so I can remove that. Now, again, if that confuses you or whatever, if you want to do this, you don't have to, but we could always come in here and set that to a color. You know what I'm saying? If you wanted to do that, it's going to be fine the way it is. All right? We're going to make some changes to it in just a minute. Okay? But ideally, after we add our next bit of code, really the first code that we've added, but after we add this code, ideally then what's going to happen is, if we're here and we click this button right here that says work experience, that's going to come up. Does that make sense to everybody? That's the idea. And it'll have a back button on it so we can get back to our original page. All right? So in order to do that, we want to go back into our main activity file, and please notice, if you didn't, it should be mainactivity.kt. Remember, all Kotlin files end with an extension of .kt. All right? Now, I put the code over here so it'd be easy for you to all put in, but I want to give you the right one, the right code, so. Make it too small, well, then it'll be harder for you to read. Can people still read that okay? Can you guys read that okay from where you are? Otherwise, I can separate this onto two lines. Maybe that would be even easier. Now I can make it bigger. There. Now, you don't need to put that in there. Those are just some comments. Okay? Now, what I want you to look at, please, before you type in anything, just look up on the screen here. Make sure that your button for work experience is called button work experience. If it's not, when you do the r.id, you won't have something called button work experience. All right? Now, I just did this to show you you can do it, but you don't have to. Notice, I called my variable the exact same thing as the button. which is totally legit to do if you want to. If you don't like the word button there, just make it work experience. Whatever way is easier for you. I want this to be as easy for you to understand as possible. This code that's right here, it's a good question. That code that's right there, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, all right? And I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to go into my main activity, and literally, I'm putting it right into here. Right there. All right? Now, just if you look up on the screen here, one thing that's weird about this, see it's giving me an error? Everybody see that? Watch this. As soon as I move it onto the same line, the error goes away. Now, I think that's weird, but maybe I'm weird. I don't know. So I'll leave that up here. I don't know if that's easier or harder for you to read, but hopefully that's big enough that you can all read it. You don't need to put that print line in there, but I want to explain why the print line is in there in just a minute. One thing that I probably should do, all right, is go and run the program again. Why? Just to be sure, I'll come right back to it, but just to be sure that indeed the code I gave you works. It worked when I did it this morning, and I did it twice this morning. So it should work without any problems, but you never know for sure. And mine keeps going back. I don't know why it keeps doing that. This is not right. Yeah.
Closing out that app
Out of
the app within your emulator. So, like,
close the app but leave the emulator open?
It's literally like a Google phone, so like you have like little things that like the phone just clear out, the app
Yeah.
and you're running it, that's what you have to do.
All right.
Like it doesn't remind me of really any setting like
Okay.
so.
Well, what I'm going to do during the break is I'm going to literally just reboot the system too. All right. I don't want to do that because last time I remade it, it didn't recognize it for a while, and I had to undo it and do it about 3 times before it finally worked. And then it worked spotty. So, all right, I'll go back to the code. Oops. Yeah, I've had an emulator crash before. And it's funny because it's highlighting right here. It's saying type argument is not within its bounds. Expected view found button. It worked just fine this morning. I never got that error. All right. So you should know by now what this line of code right here is doing. This is creating a variable, all right, inside of here that's called button work experience, and it is equating it with the button that we actually have on our home page. That should make sense to everyone. All right. What may not make sense down here is the rest of it. This says basically, hey, when you click the button, all right, I'm going to put a print line here that says you click the work experience button. If I wanted to, let's suppose, if you look up, all of you look on the screen right here, let's suppose this doesn't work. Let's just suppose I put this in and it doesn't work. Now I comment it out. If I want to know for sure, that when I click the button, something is happening, I can leave this line in here. I can bring up logcat, and every time I click the button, it should say, you click the work experience button. So it is one way that I can do at least some crude debugging to see how far I'm going in the program. All right. What this line is doing right here, all right, is it's creating what's called a brand new intent. And you need to use you use an intent for a lot of different things. One reason that you can use an intent is to create and set up a new activity. So we're saying this work experience activity is actually a Java class. All right? And if you said, why do they put the double, it's because that's the syntax of the language. All right? I'm sure you can Google it and find out more. I'm taking this course online with this guy, and it's funny because at the end of his lecture, I thought, well, he's done. And I looked up, and there's still 3 minutes left. And he starts talking, and he said, you know, people, you know, I teach people, etc., and they come up and they go, wow, how do you know all this stuff? He said, I don't know all that much, but I know how to find almost anything. And he said, I didn't remember how to do a bunch of the stuff for this app. So I was constantly going back and forth and Googling things. All right? So if you want to know more, you can go Google that. You know, : class.java. This right here says begin. That says begin that intent. All right? So that says start that activity. So in other words, what should happen when you click that button is it should go to the next page. After you put in everything, and if it appears that it doesn't have any errors, save it and try to run it and see if you can go from your home page, if you can click your work experience button, and if it goes to the next page. You have the get in front of it? Okay, I'll take a look at it. Make sure you spelled it right. And yeah. It'll automatically do a bunch of this stuff for you. There is IntelliSense built into this. All right?
The get application context, that's like the Java way to do it. You can use it. Application context.
Yeah, you're right. There's more than one way of doing it. Now, the reason, though, that I did it with a get application context is if you choose the one that comes up with IntelliSense, if you click on it, it does do an application context. It doesn't do the get application context. All right? So that's just to show you that you can throw some Java ways of doing things in along with Kotlin ways, because basically the system will recognize it anyway.
Your error too is you need to import it.
Okay. Well, and I guess earlier when I did it, it must have imported it for me automatically. So there it is. But it's still giving me an error. Import android.widget.button is right there. I got a feeling that when I go and run it, it's not going to be, that error will be gone. Yes?
So when you're doing a Java program and we did like cleaning up the text using button and stuff, we declared them above the on create, like we would do button and then name it, and then we would associate it.
Yes.
And then how come we didn't do that here?
The main reason that we didn't have to do that here is because we're only using it right in here. We don't have anything down below where we're using it. If we were doing that, then we would want to declare it up here. No, if we didn't put all our code in here, if we had other routines that were down below that needed those variables, then we would declare it up here. All right. This seems, at least, it's 1:26, like it'd be a good time to take a break. So let's take 15 minutes, come back at around 1:40, please.